1.5 FM in Las Vegas on Shades of Green. Today we're talking water with Doug Bennett and Toby Bickmore from SNWA. For our Facebook Live folks, send in some questions to us, and listeners, our phone number is 702-257-KDWN. I want to mention that our show is sponsored by the Green Alliance of Nevada, produced by the Green Alliance of Nevada and sponsored by NV Energy, and I'm your host, Paul Ira. So for those of you running water in the streets, those sirens you are hearing, those are water cops. So be careful, they're out watching you. Let's talk some more about that. How do we help our neighbors know that they shouldn't be wasting water? Is there a website or something that we can call the water cops out on our neighbors if we need to?
Yeah, you can. You know, I know a lot of people. What you did, Paul? I mean, you stopped. You had a conversation, a civil conversation with a neighbor, saying, "Hey, did you know?"
And he didn't know, so
and he didn't make a fist or threaten you or run you off the property. And so, if people feel like they can talk with their neighbors, which would be a wonderful thing. I mean, that would make this so much better city. But if someone feels like they saw something, they feel like it needs to be reported, they can call 258-SAVE. That's 258-7283. They can report it that way anywhere in the valley. So we'll look up which jurisdiction is that in, and then that information will be transferred to that jurisdiction for their follow-up. You can also go online at snwa.com. You can report water waste there. Keeping in mind, there truly are not enough enforcement people to go look at every single thing. They'll typically be prioritized, or they'll be accumulated so that if they're in a particular neighborhood, they're trying to look at everything that geographically is in that neighborhood during that time frame. So ideally, if it's not that many people actually have water in the streets. We all drove through water to get to work this morning, and most of the people listening probably did too. But keep in mind that it's usually less than 10% of the population that's creating 90% of that waste that we're seeing in the road. So most people are keeping water out of the streets. Keep that in mind. But if somebody, we've been doing this for 18 years now. If somebody's still wasting water every day, then yes, there needs to be an intervention. We don't have water for that. We don't want to throw it down the road.
I agree. And it's not my intention to get people being tattletales on their neighbors. I think it is a better idea to go talk to them and enlighten them. So if you're hearing this show and you learn something, share it with the people that you live around. And if they don't want to listen, then call 258-SAVE and let them know, and
sure.
We'll get it taken care of. Because as we're going to find out later in the show here, this is a pretty important issue. Stan?
Yeah, I was just saying maybe we could talk a little bit more about the history of how long we've been in this drought and how close we're getting to having to impose even possibly harsher conservation measures if Lake Mead drops even more. So maybe you could refresh us on that and say why the importance for this measures.
When did the lake start going down? When did this drought all start?
It actually, I moved here in April of 2000. The drought started in 2000. So.
Wow.
Ever since we've been here.
Yeah,
I've been here. Which is interesting.
Toby and I have caused the whole thing.
When we started, it was kind of interesting because we had, if you remember, the messaging was like drought, watch, drought, alert. There was all these different messaging. But since it's been kind of a perpetual thing, we've kind of changed from that to now, if you look at our messaging, it's a desert out there. You just have to be water smart. So we kind of it's just a way of life here.
It's a new normal.
We're in a desert.
We are in a desert. There is that.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting that, we've kind of shifted our messaging, to address it.
This is normal now, yeah.
Well, but there really never has been a real normal on the Colorado River. It's a very fickle river. Mm-hmm. It'll run well above average and then well below average. And so it's not a super predictable river. What's made the system very predictable and reliable are the reservoirs. Lakes Powell and Mead are what make that lake able to function through all those ups and downs. So 2017 we had an above average year. The snowpack, the runoff was above average. But 2018 was well below average.
Wow.
And now the lake is hovering at about, I think, somewhere around 1077 or so elevation above sea level.
1,077 feet above sea level.
Did you look it up?
Yeah. No,
it's right in that range. It's hovering around a few feet above a threshold at 1,075, at which there could be a declaration of shortage.
Wow.
And so while we're using well below our Colorado River allocation. We were 57,000 acre feet below our allocation last year. If there's a shortage, there will be a bite taken out of that excess. And so, yes, we still have ample water, but we should be concerned about our water resources being nibbled away at through shortage and through drought, and we need to be conscious of that. And so we're simply asking that a lot of people have already done the job. They've converted non-functional turf grass. They've put in more efficient devices and fixtures. They're more tuned in to using a broom instead of washing down their driveway. But there are neighborhoods in this valley where I can drive in and I feel like I've just driven into 1993.
Right.
Nothing has significantly changed.
Right.
And we need those people on board. It's not that people aren't doing the job, but some people are not doing their part. I got to be honest about that. And so we're making this final push. We're saying we're going to give you $3 a square foot
for turf grass.
Yeah. And we're not asking you to rip it out from underneath your child's play set. We're saying there are lots of places in this valley where the only people who are walking on that lawn grass is the guy pushing the lawnmower. And he's doing that once a week. And so while, yes, it's a green thing you want to look at, it's using 4 times as much water as all those beautiful yellow flowers and vines and ground covers and even roses. And we want you to switch to some of those things. If it's purely something to look at, let's not make it grass. It's too water intensive. We've got to keep grass underneath our playing feet in the active areas and take it out of the areas where it's purely ornamental.
And then going back to what Doug was saying with the communities, the thing that we do see is when you start to get a couple of houses start doing conversions and you have neighbors that are doing it, then you start to see that domino effect too. So when we can get into communities where they haven't done much, but we can start getting some of the people to start, then that kind of starts snowballing, which is good for us then, obviously, because then we start to get more properties. And so
that's a good point. In some of those neighborhoods where nobody's broken the ice, people will tell you that they want to do it, but they're afraid of what their neighbors will think. And I'm like, somebody's got to be brazen enough to say, I'm going to do that. And those are neighborhoods typically where people can afford to do a wonderful job and have a stellar looking water efficient landscape. Go out, be the mold breaker. Go out there and do it in your neighborhood and talk to your neighbors about doing it too. It's an extraordinary waste of water to be growing ornamental grass in a desert that gets 4 inches of rainfall per year.
Yeah. And you don't have to eliminate grass altogether, but it'd be nice to mix it with more drought-resistant plants and things like that.
We always focus on non-functional. So if you're going to use the grass, that's fine. Parks, schools, all those, they can eliminate some, but it's that grass, like Doug said, that it's an aesthetic. It's just that look. It doesn't make sense to spend a lot of water on something
Well,
like
I'm going
that.
to break the mold in my neighborhood because my neighborhood, everybody's got that front lawn, and the guy across the cul-de-sac has one of those pristine lawns with no dandelions, no crabgrass, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. So when I tear mine up, I'm going to be one of the first in the neighborhood to have xeric or desert landscaping.
Thanks, Paul.
I'm ready to do it, and I'll go door to door.
We have a rebate program for that.
I know. I got my appointment on the 10th. So
All right.
I'm
Very
looking
good.
forward to get it done. So we'll be right back to Shades of Green on KDWN, and we're talking water today. We'll be right back.